Hi, welcome. This is Jeff at the Big Hairy Dog, and this is a quick webinar on receipt import. So there is a receipt import tool, and you're looking at it on the screen there. It's a little utility that we would install, um, and it lives in the Retail Pro 9 folder. So it would just sit in here, and there's some peripheral files you have to put in there when you're installing it. I also like to provide myself with some structure, so I create folders where I put potential import file. Um, and this is what an import file would look like right here. It's a CSV file format, and you can see what it has in there, but I think it's easier to look at that in this format here. So this format here this is the install doc and the file format. It's very important. So it's a rigid format. You have to put it in the format that is specified here, um, with receipt date, time, sales type. It is, and this is important. It's assumed to be a return if you're not, if the field's blank. The store number, transaction number, cashier IDs, customer IDs, that has to be put into the info one field in the customer database. We're going to talk about more about that in a minute. The item ALU, but or lookup SKU, right? Uh, Quantity sold, original price, price, cost, tax, the salesperson, which is not the cashier, and then the tender in the appropriate column. Um, Now, when you're importing these things, it's terribly important that all of these things exist. So if you're importing an item, that item has to have already been imported into here. So the lookup number has to exist. If you're going to import an item like this here, it's got to be in the database. So if you're bringing in items from, say, sales from past, and they're not current items, you've got to import them in and make them a current item, import your history, and then deactivate them. Now, during the import of the items, you could mark them with some kind of mark that could allow you to inactivate them quickly afterwards. But they have to exist, and there's also some polling, or so I should say some ECM. ECM is the new name for polling, Enterprise Communication Manager, settings that would want to be set correctly to make sure that when you process these sales in, that they don't affect inventory. We don't want them to change the quantity on hand. We just want to create history documentation. So I recommend that you set it up with a certified technician the first time, and that you get some assistance the first time you run through this. Um, Now, on this point here, just as the items have to be created, so too do the customers. So the customer itself, if you're going to be importing a record that says, hey, this customer bought something, then that customer must exist. So here's a customer, a fake customer, that I have gone in and in the info field, I've placed the lookup value from the old receipt system, because when they import in, they'll get IDs in Retail Pro. So uh, they may or may not match. They probably won't match. And so when you import them in, you want to bring in the old number into the info one field as specified in the documentation. Um, so that's what it does. It brings them in. Let's take a look at the tool itself and look at how it works a little bit. So here's the tool itself. Um, when you first drop it in, you have to go into your setup and you have to set up your associates, your cashiers. These are cashiers and these are associates. By the way, there could be many associates, many salespeople on a receipt. If you have 5 items on the receipt, you could have 5 different salespersons, sales clerks, whatever you want to call them. So, um, so down here, what we would do is we would put in the old number, and then we would come down here and we would find the appropriate record that matches, and we would add them in, like I've done up on the top. I just added a few. This is reading the database, so it's seeing everybody every cashier that's in the system, right? So now credit card names, the system has hard-coded values, and what we do is we just find the appropriate value in Resale Pro, and we hit set, and it sets the values in there for us. ECM, again, polling, ECM is the way that we're going to see the records come in. Okay, so this tool does not write them directly to the database. It piggybacks on the fact that ECM or polling is already able to process this data in. All it has to do is write an XML file and drop it in the right folder, which we will see here in a second. So I've set it up to use this particular station file, and I've told it where the in receive folder is and where the ECM directory is and what the password is to create that. The last tab here, general, just basically says take the cost from inventory. So if I don't have the cost, and I've had a few of these where they just don't know the cost on the old item, they just want to put it in and use the cost that's current on the item in inventory. We're going to go ahead and exit now on that. So we would browse the file, and the file is in fact in that folder. It is in the import folder right there, ready to go. Run ECM would automatically import that file directly into the database, but I don't in fact want to do that quite that quick. I like to show people what's going on. Okay, so here's my in receive folder, and there is in fact nothing there, right? So we are not going to run ECM. We are going to click import, and these warnings are appropriate and wise, so I would say heed them. Yes, definitely back up your data before you do this, and do this before or after hours. Don't do it during business hours. I mean, have some common sense here, right? Okay, so now you see it has created the XML file, small one, tiny 3 records. I mean, so that would normally, if that run ECM box had been checked off, it would have processed that at a runtime command line parameter, and it would just have gone. You would not see it. There would be no indication that it was processing in at all. So let's close this, and let's close this. And right, we don't need that anymore. And what I'm looking for is this here. Let's see what we got going on here real quick. Right, so there's a shortcut that brings it up to show, right, for that station file. So there's the XML file. So we'll go ahead and click this here. And see, so the file vanishes, and it processes that file for me. And that's what actually does the import and brings it into Resale Pro. And that's how it works right there. So it's a simple tool. It doesn't, and that's not the right data range, but it's a simple tool. So it does what it doesn't do is it doesn't necessarily bring in the customer records. It doesn't bring in the items. All that has to be pre-existing. So it's important that when you do use this tool that you, again, get with a technician, get with a certified technician like myself, a trainer or someone, and map out exactly what the plan will be so that you know going in what to expect. I don't want to give you expectations on it doing more than it does. It's a very good tool. It works really excellent, but it does what it does. It brings in receipts. All right. Anyway, thank you very much. Again, this is Jeff at the Big Hairy Dog, and we will talk again soon, I'm sure.